Hello Aries and welcome to my channel. My name is Nikita Antoine and I'm the Oracle of Natiru. So I've done your reading today with my blended deck of Threads of Fate Weaver and Oracle, Weaver Tarot and Oracle deck. So you'll be seeing both of those in your spread today. So you're coming in really fierce, very fierce. We have the ass body at the bottom of the deck. It's not saying anything in particular to me, but it just wants to present itself as like that, this jaguar fierce energy. So as I was gazing in my crystal ball to pull in your energy and see where you're at, I saw you pruning roses in your garden, but the garden was kind of like it was overgrown. It's kind of like the secret garden, you know, when the children find the secret garden, and in order for it to grow they need to like prune everything and get everything in order so that when springtime comes it can fully come into its magnificent splendor, you know. So we are starting your reading off, and they do want to go together. Okay, so we're starting your reading off with the Three of Coins and the Observer. And with the Three of Coins, I talk about how this card in particular speaks of communication with your guides, angels, whatever you would, higher self, whatever you call that for yourself. It speaks about full communication with those guides to get you to move forward. And I'm seeing this as, it's like this shape here looks to me like a Ouija board, like the thing on, you know, that you put your two fingers on, and is helping guide you, especially with this Observer. It's like you're using your intuitive skills to receive guidance. And the guidance here today, it's like almost like I never even saw it in here. And I feel like that's what you're thinking about in your garden. It's like whatever you are pruning away, it's like you never even knew it was there because it was blocked by an entanglement. And in this, I don't know why I've never seen this. Hopefully it'll come into focus for you. But there's a rose right there through the center. And this, I typically call it, it's like the thing that a cartographer uses for maps. But here today, it wanted to come through as shears. And it's talking about, it's like you have received guidance that you need to start pruning. And it's like you're going in and you're just like cutting everything. Which is good because roses in particular, they need to be pruned regularly so that they produce more flowers. Like they love to be pruned. And with it followed up by the Lovers card, especially with this rose that's coming in mind, I'm feeling that whatever this intuitive guidance that you've received, it's like you're gung-ho, you're going for it, you're making the decision, there's no it's like there's no hesitation. You just know what you have to do and you're just going for it. And what it has to do with is some like romance, especially with the rose. It's just bringing up a lot of relationships. And now I'm being called to that there are several different color roses. And the rose that is being brought to my mind is the yellow rose. And yellow roses signify friendship. So it might not necessarily be romantic, but it is a relationship that has is very intimate. It could be even like a best friend, right? It's just pruning away the things that are not going to be good for the growth of that relationship. It could even be the relationship itself. And next, what's followed is, so we have the two of coins followed by the lovers. And this too was coming through as shears, because there's like these other types of shears that have like a spring coil in the back. They don't look like traditional scissors. They have like a spring coil, and that's what was bringing up here as well. And they like cross like this. They're like, I don't know. Yeah, and they cross like that. You know what I'm talking about. And that too was coming across as scissors. But it's like it's sort of talking about, it's not sort of talking about, it is talking about, especially with, so the paradox is at the center of your reading, and it's followed below these two, and it's talking about holding two awarenesses in your mind. So it's kind of like having your cake and eating it too. It's like that's what you want. But there's this, like, you can't really have both, because if you eat your cake, you can't have it too. And then if you have it, then that means you're not going to be able to eat it. So it's like, it's this paradox, right? So there's, even though you are wanting to move forward with urgency and strength and resilience, there is this paradox within you about, like, can we just keep the garden natural and wild and, you know, a little bit chaotic? Does it have to be orderly? You know, like how it's kind of like the difference between an English rose garden versus like an Italian garden. Hopefully you know the references that I'm talking about. But like Italian gardens are very orderly and structured, whereas like English gardens are more natural. They have like a little bit of like a chaoticness to it. It's not chaos, it's just natural. And as I was reading your cards, the nursery rhyme Three Blind Mice was coming in with, once I started looking at this Three of Coins. And I had to like look up the nursery rhyme and see, you know, the lyrics and what it's about. And what was coming through is that it's, so three blind mice, see how they run, see how they run. They run after this farmer's wife who cuts their tails, I can't remember, with like a knife, right? And it's like, with the two of coins, like these are their tails, right? But there's only two tails. So speaking of, it's like there's a last tail that needs to be cut. And mice, for me, talk about, I mean, they talk about anxiety, and they talk about like vermin. And when we're speaking of anxiety, we're talking about like the vermin that are in your mind. So it's like you're going into the inner scape of your garden, and you're seeing that there is a lot of things that need to be pruned, and you've done, like, it's like you have done. The sun, right? The sun is followed next. It's like the sun is starting to come through. You can see progress happening. You know, with the warrior coming up after that, it's talking about, it's like you staked your claim. It's like, this is my garden. This is the one that I'm taking care of. It's very like, it just wants to be assertive. But there is this last tail that needs to be cut. And it's like, whatever that is, it's causing some type of like entrapment, or an entrapment in your thought process, your like the blooming of your garden, right? So your energy is very strong in this reading. It's very strong. And then you're coming up next with the Seeker of Wands, and then the Underworld. So it's like so at the center of your reading, right? This is how, this is how it's presented. And it's like there's two sides to this paradox of yours. And one side of this paradox is the Seeker of Wands and the Underworld. So it's talking about, I speak of the Seeker of Wands about how it's finding your total unique to you. It's finding your hat. Like if you've ever been shopping for a hat, you know how it can kind of be a little bit difficult to find your specific hat, because there's just a lot to choose from, right? Like there's a plethora of variety. It's kind of like now that you've pruned your garden, there's such a plethora of bulbs, right, that you can place within the rows of your garden, and it's kind of like needing to sift through that in order to find what resonates with you, right? So it's talking about finding your truest identity, right? But with the Underworld card, it feels as though, it almost feels like it's like you're trapped by your identity. Like your identity is becoming an entrapment. And that's a paradox for you, because it's like you feel as though, right, you're doing this pruning so that you can be free, right? So that you can plant what you want. You can allow the sun to come through. You can be, here, let me pull this up. You can be the master of your garden, right? But it's like because you can't have both. What is it that you can't have both of? I'm not quite seeing what that is. But it's like, because you can't have both, it feels like it's blocking away what you want. Right? It's the paradox. And on the other side of the paradox is Justice and the Eight of Swords. And the Eight of Swords specifically talks about the entrapments that we put ourselves in, and learning how to release ourselves from them. In your case, it's pruning your garden. It's like through pruning your garden, you are achieving the balance that is needed in order to bring that garden back to life. Except for there's still something. Okay, it's like, this is what it's like. It's like you have your garden, you've pruned it, but now it's like, even in the secret garden, right? Like there was a barrier around the garden. So it's talking about how you have this beautiful garden, that is coming into life, but it's not being shared. Like, it's like you're the only one that knows that it's there. You're the only one that can see it and witness it in its beauty. And that's that it's that is that blah, blah, blah. That is this, like, it's like you're bound to the garden and you want to step out of the garden. And it's talking about like you wanting to move out of your garden and expand beyond the picket fence, if you will. Right? Like this, the Seeker of Wands talks about that. It talks about like stepping out of the norms, right, of society, and choosing your own hat. Like it's kind of like instead of buying like a bulk made hat, it's like you have gotten one that's handmade for you specifically, right? Because they have to like measure your head. We have to figure out what, you know, style brim you want. What do you want what the top to look like? Do you want any adornments? You know what I'm saying? So but it's like, in a sense, that is kind of, it just feels like it's like it feels, you know what it feels like? It just feels lonely a little bit. It just feels lonely. It's like you're the only one there to witness the glory of what is being created by you, for you. But you're coming in, like, even though it feels a bit lonely in your garden, you're coming in incredibly, like, I cannot emphasize that enough. It is incredible strength, because we are starting the next row with your energy again. It's the Eight of Coins and the Anchor, and the Anchor is the Emperor in the traditional tarot. And it's like, even though this is a solo project of yours, you know, a solo pruning of this garden, it's like you're okay with that. You're okay with it. However, you would also like to be able to experience it with others. I mean, we even have the warrior, which is coming through as your energy as well. Like, you are all over this. There isn't anyone else. It just feels like it's kind of like the paradox of like having to do like all your shadow work alone, because you can't have anybody else's influence, because once someone else's influence comes in, right, even if they are someone like, right, like a beloved friend, it's like, even if their influence comes in, it's like this energy of the Two of Coins. It's like, now oh shoot, now you're having to like balance what you want and then like what they want as well. And it causes this imbalance, which, you know, makes you have to retreat back into the solitude nature of pruning your garden. So with the Eight of Coins, it's like you are accepting the work and you are blasting forward to do it, and you're willing to safeguard it and also just stand there and make sure that no one is crossing the boundary. It's also this assertive warrior energy too. It's like it's like your energy is all over your garden. You're standing at the front gate of your garden. You are in the garden pruning. You are also around the exterior of your garden, like blocking off anything that is going to try to come in and, I want to say, like infiltrate like mice, right? It's like when that type of energy comes in, that's when everything's knocked off balance, and there's this, it's like I don't want to say panic, but I guess it's like, that's very extreme. But it's talking about like when the mice get in, it's very hard to find them. Like, because they're so small, and then if everything is like entangled in your garden, then it's like it's impossible to find these mice. So you are stopping it at the front door. Like, they can't even get in because there's no access around your garden. There's no access. And with the anchor and the strength, it's a fortitude. It's fortitude and focus, a very fine focus on cultivation. Cultivation with the Sovereign of Coins. And what you're cultivating is self. You know, Sovereign of Coins she does talk about self-love, right? But it's like, in order to get to that fine, you know, being able to sit back and relax and enjoy the beautiful space that you've created for yourself, it talks about having to, you know, use the shears to prune things, to get space that's clear in order to put that bench down, you know, like hang the swing from the giant tree. Like, it's just, and the journey to get to that point requires a lot of fortitude and strength within self. And it's like, that is what is also being built in this process of cultivation. I mean, even in her hands, right? Even in her hands, she has the new rose. The new rose that will be blossoming in the spring. And following the Sovereign of Coins, we have, I'm trying to see if they want to come together or if they want to be separate. One moment. It's like, okay, it's like, even though you know that this is the future, this is because you've seen it, right? You saw it at the beginning of your reading, and you've gone through, you've, you know, played out the paradox in your mind, and you know that both exist, and it's kind of like, you're like, okay, well, it is what it is. And you see, it's like you know the outcome because you've seen it. Your guides have shown you. But here with the Death and Hermit, it's talking about knowing that you have to go through the winter to see the explosion of color in the springtime. I mean, because especially in English gardens, I don't know how I know all this stuff about gardens. I guess because I'm kind of like a gardener myself. But in English gardens, you have to do mass pruning at the start of winter. well, not the start of winter, but like in the fall when everything is, you know, before the frost, when everything is starting to dwindle down and it itself is going into a hermit mode, right? We're talking about hermit and death. It's like that process needs to happen for everything to come back lush in the spring. But it is during that time of the hermitude, if you will, where, so this death card for me, look, even in this death card, the snakes, which is your energy, is moving towards the rose up at the top. And I'm now suddenly, I'm realizing that this is also the paradox. Yeah. Right? Because there's two. It's like there's two sides of this paradox. And it's in this winter that the joining, because this death is a merging energy. It's like the joining of, it's kind of like they're collapsing in on each other. It's like in the springtime, even though nobody can see the work that you're doing now, even though, okay, so we're talking about, right, we're talking about shadow work. Even though nobody can see the work that you're doing now, the major sacrifice that you're having to do and go into this hermit mode and be in that lonesome. It's not alone, because you do have your guides with you, but it isn't, the thing is that it's not shared with others. It's like that paradox is collapsing in on itself, and it's speaking about, as you go through this process, that merges together, and it's like there's kind of like it's, for me, it looks like it's looking like a ribbon being cut. It's like a grand opening. Because I'm seeing this, so in this hermit card, right, it's a lantern, but in order to light the inside, right, there's a door. There's a door on the inside of the lantern. And that door is talking about like this being your garden, sealed off, right, like that secret garden. And then at the end of winter, beginning of spring, when everything comes into full view, because you needed to go through this hermit stage in order for everything to come into full view, it's like there's this opening in which now others can be invited inside. Because it's like your mind space needed pruning. Because if it didn't have the pruning, right, then if you were to allow people to come in before that pruning, you know, like they wouldn't be able to see the beautiful pathways. They wouldn't be able to sit and enjoy the space, because there would be like little mice running around, like the thorns would catch their beautiful dresses, and it just wouldn't be a pleasant experience. Right? And it's not, I mean, I would say that it's not, that before, that it's not a pleasant experience, because there is this paradox of wanting your cake and eating it too. There's a lot of like, I want to say, what is her name? Like Marie Antoinette type of interesting. That's really interesting. Oh my gosh, it's interesting. Okay, because in the Three Blind Mice, the reason for that lyric, it was, I can't remember specifically which queen and king. I think they were of Spain. The reason why that lyric was written was because there were people, three let's just say opposers. I feel like they're a Protestant, but this has nothing to do with like different religions or anything. But it's talking about like opposing forces. There were three opposing forces against the king and queen, and they did their own version of pruning, which isn't quite as beautiful as pruning a garden. But yeah, that's what it was talking about, the cutting of the tails. The cutting of the tails. So that's what it wants to go back to. They want to remind you that the purpose of all of this is for the unveiling in spring. I don't know why spring keeps coming to mind. Okay. Well, Aries, if that resonated with you, I would love to see you in the extended with us. I'm going to pull some more cards for you there. And yeah, I'll see you. If not, you can join me next time. All the love to you, Aries. Bye, honey.